Hello and welcome. The 25th Nigerian Economic Summit holds in Abuja. Plateau State Governor takes a swipe at politicians, blames them for rising insecurity. More worries about the forthcoming governorship election in Anambra State. National Security Advisor and service chiefs agree to provide necessary security for peaceful exercise. The National Convention of the People's Democratic Party hangs in the balance as Court of Appeal reserves ruling on the chairmanship tussle in the party. And coup leaders in Sudan defend their actions, insist the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok ousted to avoid a civil war in the country. Plus, we'll have international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says it expects the country's demand for petroleum products to grow to 17.3 million metric tons by 2025, up from 15.1 million metric tons recorded last year.
And on sports news tonight, two-time African champions Anambra have been drawn against Libya's Al Ittihad in the final preliminary round of the Confederation Cup.
And from Abuja, federal government reveals that the activities of Boko Haram and bandits increase in the number of out-of-school children in the country.
Security, education and politics took center stage on day 2 of the Nigeria Economic Summit in Abuja today. The Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong minced no words when he declared that the crisis in the state is being fueled by politicians. He also affirmed that governors from the northern region are in full support of state police. Our correspondent Empress Simon now brings us the major highlights of the day's proceedings.
It's the second day of the Nigerian Economic Summit, and the discussion here centers on various aspects of Nigeria's economy, ranging from politics, security, education to the issues of poverty and unemployment. The governor of Plateau State and the deputy governor of Imo State share their experiences on the security situation in their states and proffer solutions to the general security challenges in the country.
Plateau is codenamed the home of peace and tourism. Then all of a sudden, what happened? What happened? I will say also, politically, part of it is the role of political actors. And subsequent administrations were capitalizing on it. Now, instead of bringing people together, there was serious disintegration.
Discussions then moved to politics, and the Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai carpets the country's political parties, including his party, the All Progressives Congress, for lacking internal democracy.
What I find very interesting is that the people that talk about democracy, oh, we fought for June 12, they are the least democratic people. Look at the political party. Look at those that say, oh, we chased out Abacha, you know, we're Nadeko. Look at their political party. It's the least democratic. And some of that virus has been imported into even APC.
With more than 9.2 million Nigerian children said to be out of school, high-level illiteracy, high maternal mortality rate and number of malnourished children on the increase, the urgent need to deliberate on developing human capital forms the crux of the plenary, featuring the governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, former CBN governor Sanusi Lamido, and other speakers who call for more efforts at achieving the sustainable development goals.
I think for us in Nigeria, the most critical of the SDGs is security, it's education, it's healthcare. We can wrap around a lot of the other 17 points, 17 SDGs around those three.
As the summit comes to a close, the urgency to address the issues raised at the summit has become imperative. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum and governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, says the federal government cannot make deductions from the federation accounts for payment of consultants for the Paris Club refund. Governor Fayemi stated this while responding to journalists on the sideline of the 27th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja. He says state governors are not happy about the federal government making deductions without input from state governors.
We will find a resolution to it. As far as states are concerned, they do not accept that funds belonging to the Federation account could just be arbitrarily deducted without their input. And that's why they've insisted that until this is clarified, we will rather leave the money in the pool until we are all agreed on the direction.
Next week's governorship election in Anambra State remains on the front burner, and the National Security Advisor continues to seek ways to ensure peaceful conduct of the poll. This time, Major General Babagana Monguno is appealing to residents of Anambra to be law-abiding and remain peaceful. Addressing journalists after a meeting of the General Security Appraisal Committee, General Monguno restates the government's commitment to provide security for everyone in the state.
The Anambra governorship election is the main focus as the National Security Advisor presides over the General Security Appraisal Committee meeting, which had all the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police in attendance. The meeting is holding behind closed doors, and after 2 hours of deliberation, the National Security Advisor reaffirms the commitment of the government to ensuring a peaceful conduct of the November 6th governorship election in Anambra State.
Primarily, our intentions, our aspirations are to see that the elections do not result in anything that is unwanted, any bloodshed, any violence, intimidation, coercion, or even terrorizing the people of Anambra State. It is their fundamental right to vote and choose whoever they want to choose as their governor. They should not be denied that right.
The police is deploying over 34,000 officers alongside several senior officers for the conduct of the election. The police chief urges residents to exercise their political franchise without fear.
Election security is a civil responsibility that we will provide to the people of Anambra to come out and exercise their franchise, and we hope we will do that with all sense of responsibility, and we also urge the people of Anambra to come out in mass and exercise their franchise. For those who are not interested in seeing these election a success, we want to assure you that the election will hold. Government is ready to provide security for those who are law-abiding to go about their lawful businesses.
The security agencies are hoping that the election will be conducted void of any violence as they continue to fine-tune the security arrangement for the exercise.
Away from Anambra security, the leadership of the People's Democratic Party is not backing down with preparations ahead of its national convention scheduled for October the 30th and 31st. Addressing journalists after a meeting of the Convention Accreditation Committee in Abuja, the governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, says the convention will hold in spite of the matter in court filed by a former national chairman of the party, Mr. Uche Secondus.
Notwithstanding the recent concerns and fears generated by a pending Court of Appeal ruling which could affect the October 30th and 31st National Convention of the People's Democratic Party, the leadership of the party continues to firm up preparations for the convention. The governor of Delta State, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, is leading other members of the Convention Accreditation Committee at this meeting, charging them on the need for transparency in the screening process for delegates.
Having put all these things in place, we will not be reassured that the rest of the work is what we have to do to ensure an accreditation process that is integrity-based. I use the word integrity because it's very important for us. There is just no room for us to do things in the unusual manner. We must do things in the way it ought to be.
Outside the hall, the governor tells journalists that the party is unperturbed by efforts by some members who are in court to stop the convention.
There are no real issues concerning delegate elections, but in about 1 or 2 states, we still have issues, people contending in court. But I think the legal advisor will offer us his opinion before the end of today.
At a separate meeting, former Deputy Senate President Senator Ikekwere Madu presides over the appeals committee to decide the fate of aspirants that were screened out of the race and some petitions against some of the cleared candidates.
On the whole, we received about 5 appeals. And one is in respect of the non-clearance of a Deputy National Secretary by the aspirant himself, Honorable Akinton Karim. No matter what is our feelings about those appeals and the petitions, what we intend to do as a very responsible body is to listen to all those that are written to us and then hear from them and look at the documents before us, and possibly we reconvene to look at the presentations.
No doubt, the PDP has put in so much time and resources towards the conduct of the National Convention. The party is hoping that these efforts will lead to a successful exercise devoid of any form of litigation.
And while the PDP continues its plan for the convention, uncertainty appears to surround the event, as the Court of Appeal in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, will on Thursday hear arguments on the application by the former national chairman of the party, Uche Secondus. Mr. Secondus is seeking to stop the PDP from conducting the special national convention on Saturday and Sunday. The panel of 3 justices, led by Justice Haruna Samani, took the decision at today's proceedings to allow new parties who applied to join in the matter make contributions.
The appellant, Prince Secondus Uche, is asking for an injunction to restrain PDP from conducting its national convention. Because of gender of new parties, and the fact that a counter affidavit was served on me yesterday, which I need to respond to, that has been adjourned to 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 28th day of October, 2021, for argument. The next one is an appeal in 300 against an interim order made by the High Court on 23rd of August, 2021. The court has agreed with us that that appeal is academic. It has therefore been struck out.
The court has given them opportunity to come and say whatever they want to say, and the matter is adjourned to Thursday. So the court said it will decide whether the convention should go on or not on Thursday.
And staying with legal matters, the trial of musician Aziz Fashola, popularly known as Naira Marley, on 11 counts of conspiracy, possession of counterfeit cards and fraud, continued today at the Federal High Court in Lagos. The court listened to the testimony of a second prosecution witness, Anosike Augustine, a mobile forensic expert with the EFCC. Led in evidence by the prosecutor, Rotimi Oyedepo, the witness continued his testimony, which he had begun in 2020, just before the COVID-19 lockdown. Mr. Anosike narrated how about 2,410 short messages were analyzed from the iPhone of the defendant. He also said that different credit card numbers were extracted from the defendant's iPhone. While analyzing Naira Marley's iPhone, the witness said 977 short message service and 1,433 chats were discovered, adding that there were also 7 pending status update messages. After his testimony, the prosecutor informed the court that all the analyzed messages were contained in a compact disc, but the prosecution had only printed out the portions which were material to its case. Justice Nicholas Owiwo adjourned to tomorrow, Wednesday, October the 27th, for the CD to be played. In part 2, after the break, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Muhammad, swears in new Federal Capital Territory Chief Judge. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The 25th Nigerian Economic Summit holds in Abuja. Plateau State Governor blames rising insecurity on politicians. National Security Advisor and Service Chiefs agree to provide necessary security to allow for peaceful conduct of Anambra governorship election. Uncertainty surrounds the National Convention of the People's Democratic Party ahead of the Court of Appeal ruling on the party's chairmanship tussle. And coup leaders in Sudan defend their actions, insist the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok ousted to avoid a civil war in the country. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, is asking judges and lawyers to go on self-cleansing to rid the profession of bad eggs. Justice Muhammad says judges cannot issue reckless orders, while lawyers cannot file frivolous suits and embark on forum shopping. The CJN was speaking while admitting the oath of office on the new Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf, in Abuja.
The legal profession should indeed take the lead in all human affairs. However, the lead is at a price. We cannot take the lead when our courts issue ex parte orders recklessly. We cannot take the lead when many litigants, with support of their counsel, engage in forum shopping. We cannot take the lead when counsel file a case before a court that they know lacks jurisdiction, and the judge proceeds to hear the case. We cannot take the lead when counsel files frivolous cases in our courts just for nuisance value or to buy time. We must not only do self-assessment, we also need self-cleansing.
And here in Lagos, the Southwest Governors Forum today held a meeting to discuss issues of insecurity and other matters confronting the region. The meeting, which took place in Lagos House Marina, had in attendance the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Osun State Governor Gboyega Oyetola, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State, Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, and the Deputy Governor of Oyo State, Rauf Olaniyan. After several hours of meeting behind closed doors, the chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum, Governor Akeredolu, said that part of their deliberations bordered on the security situation in the region and ideas on how to address the challenge. He says they have also had a discussion on Odua Group, a company owned by all 6 Southwest states, but declined to give further details on the group. Let's cross over to Abuja now, and here's Linda Akibe. Linda?
Hello, Ijoma. The president says the Treasury Single Account TSA, the Bank Verification Number BVN, and the National Identification Number NIN initiatives have reinforced his administration's efforts in tackling corruption. President Muhammad Buhari said this today in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when he addressed the Future Investment Initiative Summit. In a statement from the president's senior special assistant on media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, says that these initiatives, among other reforms, will give comfort to investors. The president's speech was titled Investing in Humanity, the Nigerian Perspective, in which he explained that the newly launched e-Naira would help tackle the illicit flow of funds while increasing participation in the banking sector. He also drew the attention to the devastating effect of climate change on the livelihoods of people around the Lake Chad, calling for massive investment through the public-private sector to rejuvenate the Lake Chad. Back at home, the president has also been speaking through his chief of staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, on the impact of the activities of Boko Haram and bandits on the school system. According to him, their actions increasing the number of out-of-school children in the country. Professor Gambari was speaking at the 4th International Conference on Safe Schools Declaration, which held in Abuja.
The incessant attacks on the country's educational system in the form of kidnapping, abduction of pupils, students, through the increased activities of insurgents and general insecurity in our schools has been chief among contributing factors responsible for the growing number of out-of-school children. These perpetrators of evil haven't turned their attention to innocent children in boarding schools or institutions outside city limits to abduct young learners in large numbers. Some places that have been hit by this menace include Chibok, Dapchi, and other places throughout the country, including Buni, Yadi, Afaka, Kagara, and Jengebe in Borno, Yobe, Kaduna, Niger, and Zamfara states, respectively.
It has been estimated by the International Monetary Fund that Nigeria loses $29 billion annually, 5.8% of its gross domestic product, due to lack of reliable power supply. Nigerians also spend an estimated $14 billion every year on generators and fuel. And that's according to the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adeshino, who spoke on day 2 of the Manufacturers Association meeting in Abuja.
A lack of electricity is killing Nigerian industries, something Chief Odutola was concerned about way back in 1971. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, industry spent $93.1 billion naira, I must say, on alternative energy in 2018. That is 47 years after Chief Odutola. Today, no business can survive in Nigeria without generators. Consequently, the abnormal has become normal. Unless Nigeria decisively tackles its electricity, energy deficiency, and reliability, its industries will always remain uncompetitive.
Also speaking virtually at the event, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, asked for more connectivity of small and medium enterprises within the African region to international demands. She adds that poor countries need to access larger markets at this period when there is a projection that trade would grow at about 10.8% before the end of 2021.
Trade also has a wider role to play in the global economic recovery. Poor countries need access to bigger markets to grow rapidly. With trade projected to grow at 10.8% this year, more than twice as fast as GDP, external demand will far outpace domestic demand for many countries, especially those on the wrong end of the K-shaped recovery. For manufacturers, trade is also important, of course, on the import side, since it means better access to inputs as well as competitive logistics and other services critical to international competitiveness. Digital is very important here, especially for young Africans and the businesses they create. Many businesses have been able to weather the pandemic because they were able to access the internet and sell online. We should work harder, first to understand the barriers facing micro, medium, and small enterprises in global trade, and then to lower these barriers. At the WTO, different groups of members are seeking to do just that. One group is working on an e-commerce agreement. Another is working on empowering MISMIS, micro, medium, and small enterprises to trade. And a third is working on lowering barriers facing women in global economic trade.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) projects country's demand for petroleum products is expected to grow to 17.3 million metric tons by 2025. That's in business news. Join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. In Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde says the agribusiness sector is looking good enough for both local and foreign investments as his administration continues to provide the enabling environment for it to thrive. The governor stated this at the maiden edition of the Oyo Agribusiness Summit, which took place at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, Ibadan.
Increasing investment in the agribusiness environment involves viable partnerships between the government and the private sector, which informs the collaboration between the Oyo State government and the IITA for the maiden edition of the Oyo State Agribusiness Summit, with focus on youth involvement in agriculture. With over 2.2 million hectares of arable land, 3,000 hectares of artificial lakes, at least 5 rivers and dams, Oyo State is said to be well positioned by nature and now being well developed by the government for revolutionary agribusiness.
To be clear, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak of our visions for agriculture and agribusiness, we look not to the recapture of old glories from our era of past, but to take a giant leap into an exciting future full of fantastic opportunities in which agribusiness holds the key to prosperity and improved social outcomes.
The Director General of the IITA lauds the initiative, describing it as a testament of a serious commitment to agribusiness.
Agriculture could be a value chain, could be food. Just like Devo said, the value chain, the amount of money in the future in agriculture in Africa is going to be $1 trillion.
For Governor Makinde, the involvement of government in agricultural development through policies and regulations that match the immediate environment with global standards is imperative.
Our efforts are a result of careful planning and strategic thinking. And this is why we offer unbeatable incentives to invest in agribusiness in Oyo State. What have we done? We created OISADA, Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency. This is to serve as the vehicle for driving agribusiness development. This has eliminated the administrative bottlenecks that prevent private investors from communicating directly with public office holders.
Nigeria currently spends $11 billion annually to import food that could be cultivated by Nigerians if encouraged. A summit such as this is capable of changing the narrative if sustained and acted on.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Shareholders of Guinness Nigeria PLC have approved over 1 billion naira dividend declared and recommended by the board of the company at the 71st annual general meeting held in Lagos. And this comes as the company recorded a 54% increase in revenue for the year ended June the 30th, 2021. The board chair, Mrs. Omobola Johnson, told shareholders that the company will keep up with its growth strategy to continue on the path of profitability.
For the 71st year running, board members and representatives meet once again to receive and evaluate reports and the company's financial positions for the year ended June 2021.
What you are giving them, you are also getting back.
It's the first AGM to be presided by Mrs. Omobola Johnson as the board chair.
Registrar, can you please confirm that we have a quorum for the meeting?
The company delivered top-line improvements in the period under review compared to last year.
Profit after tax went up by 1.26 billion naira. Recognizing the importance of return for investment, shareholders will receive a reward of over 1.8 billion naira at 46 kobo per share. The results, according to the board chair, reflects the company's resilience in a challenging environment.
We're facing some very challenging headwinds around inflation, foreign exchange, but I think that with all the efforts that have been made by the management team, we expect that this coming year is going to be just as good as last year. And all the investments that we need to make in the brewing capacity, in our distribution, our logistics, we're making all those investments to ensure that we can actually deliver the same results or better results as for this year.
The managing director of Guinness Nigeria, Baker Magunda, expresses his confidence in the company's outlook for the future.
We have new materials that we now understand how to use better as part of our insourcing to avoid the impact on forex. That we need a new site which is bigger than the Ogbar, but also reflective of the expansion that we should start doing very soon.
Here's what shareholders have to say about the company's performance.
Though the dividend declared is a kobo dividend, but we're happy for that. Unlike last year, nothing was declared, so I'm happy to see that at least we are making some progress.
This account we consider have shown a new dimension, have shown hope, and have shown that Guinness is being repositioned.
Guinness Nigeria has come a long way. Attaining 71 years as a business entity is not a mean feat. The company says it will leverage local opportunities, create value and empowerment through local sourcing, while taking opportunities that will grow revenue and protect its margins.
For the rest of the business news, here's Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. Demand for petroleum products in the country is expected to grow to 17.3 million metric tons by 2025, up from 15.1 million metric tons recorded last year. At an event in Lagos, the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Mele Kyari, told journalists that Nigeria needs to have a refining capacity of about 1.52 million barrels per stream day in order to meet the demand within the next 4 years. He explained that NNPC is adding 215,000 BPSD of refining capacity through private sector-driven co-location at the existing facilities in Port Harcourt and Warri. He also mentioned that the NNPC's refineries, 445,000, as well as the Dangote refineries, 650,000 BSPD, which are running at 60% capacity, respectively, would supply 76% of Nigeria's PMS requirement. The Nigerian Exchange Limited is set to host the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the inaugural Nigerian Capital Market Conference scheduled for November the 30th. A statement released by the NGX mentioned that the conference, which is tagged the Future Ready Capital Market, innovating for Nigeria's sustainable recovery, has become imperative as the domestic capital market occupies a critical position in Nigeria and Africa's economic growth and development. Participants expected at the conference include policymakers, financial experts, business leaders, international development partners, and other market stakeholders. And to some company news now, industrial giant Boa Cement has released its unaudited results for the third quarter of 2021. According to the financial results sent to the NGX, the company's net assets fell by 1.1% to 371.86 billion naira. However, its revenue jumped by 19.4% to 186.90 billion naira. At the same time, the industrial bellwether's pre-tax profit surged by 25.5% to 74.33 billion naira. After-tax profit soared by 23.2% to 65.9 billion naira, while its earnings per share climbed by 23.4% to 195 kobo. The market is still in the green despite closing the day flat after profit taking hit some key consumer goods sector. John Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much and welcome to the stock market report. Well, an uptrend in the equities market today, but it slowed. Anyway, it was still a bullish trade session. The all-share index closed flat. The difference between yesterday and today was just 0.2. Very minimal but upward movement, and over 100 million naira added to the total market value. This is reflected in the deals, which was about 100 less than yesterday, while volume of trade for the day decreased to almost 50% of what it was yesterday. Or red activity charts today. Now, the banking sector made a comeback from yesterday. Today, it was in the green, 0.21%, thanks to FBN holding once again. Although it shared 15 cover from its share price, it led top trades both by volume and value. Oil and gas took the fall. Today, it was down 0.38%. Now, this can be linked to the drop in share price of O&O. It opened at 5.25 naira and closed at 4.95 naira. Most probably profit-taking. A flat all-share index, but a positive market breadth today. The bull run is still on. That's a stock market report. I'm John Mekwa.
Thanks a lot, Ini. On the global scene, 10 of the world's leading stock markets ended Tuesday's trading session mostly positive, boosted by stronger earnings results from big tech stocks such as Microsoft and Alphabet. Here are their closing numbers. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Ijeoma for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, coup leaders in Sudan defend their actions, insist the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok ousted to avoid a civil war in the country. And more international news from our London studio. Please join us again. Welcome back. Sudan's coup leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, says the army ousted the government of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok to avoid a civil war. He accused politicians of incitement against the armed forces and said Hamdok had not been harmed and was brought into his own home. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Crowds of Sudanese citizens are out on the streets of the capital Khartoum to protest for a second day against Monday's military coup. At least 10 people were reported killed and dozens injured, many of them as a result of soldiers opening fire on protesters. There is heavy security deployments and units have blocked the bridges connecting the city. The UN has demanded that the military release the Prime Minister, Abdallah Hamdok, and other civilian leaders of the transitional government, while the US State Department has released a joint statement co-signed by the UK and Norway.
I was in Khartoum just last week, where I stressed the need for all parties to support the civilian-led government's work to deliver the democratic transition, the process agreed by all sides in the Constitutional Declaration of August 2019. The military leadership in Khartoum cannot claim to be committed to a democratic future while simultaneously acting unilaterally to dissolve the transitional institutions and arrest leading civilian politicians.
The Australian government has announced its plan to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The announcement comes a week before the COP26 in Glasgow, the biggest international summit about climate. Under the net zero plan, the Australian government plans to invest $20 billion by the end of the decade in developing low emissions technologies. However, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has pointed out the country won't put a definitive end to its fossil fuel sector, which has drawn international criticism. The country is one of the dirtiest countries per head of the population and a massive exporter of fossil fuels. A group of women have defiantly marched through the streets of the Afghan capital, Kabul, demanding rights to education and work under the Taliban. The group held placards and chanted slogans. More than 2 months after the Taliban took over the country, older girls are still not back at school, and there are no women in senior positions in the new government. Afghanistan is also facing the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world, with the country seeing a sharp deterioration in the situation since the Taliban seized power. International funds which propped up the country's fragile economy have largely been stopped. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has found his social media platforms suspended after posting a video about the supposed link between COVID-19 and AIDS. Facebook removed the video, followed by YouTube suspending the leader's accounts for 1 week. In the clip, he claimed that the official reports from the British government suggested that fully vaccinated people against COVID-19 are more at risk for immune deficiency syndrome. Hurricane Rick's strong winds have continued to move further inland in Mexico, with heavy rains carrying the potential to trigger flash flooding and mudslides. Rick was packing maximum sustained winds of 80 miles per hour. It is forecast to move over southern Mexico, with heavy rains raising water levels of rivers, causing flooding in low-lying areas. No fatalities have yet been reported. Japan's Princess Mako has given up her royal title to marry her college sweetheart Kei Komuro in a ceremony that has divided the nation. There was none of the usual pomp that usually marks a royal wedding, with the couple also turning down the traditional payment of $1.3 million. The understated ceremony follows a 4-year engagement coloured by scandal and delay. There were protests on the streets, with many criticising the marriage after reports of a money scandal involving Komuro's mother. The couple are expected now to move to the US, where Mr. Komuro works as a lawyer. Blue Origin, the space exploration company owned by Jeff Bezos, has unveiled plans to develop a commercial space station called Orbital Reef. In partnership with Boeing, they aim to launch the spacecraft in the second half of this decade. It's hoped Orbital Reef will operate as a mixed-use business park, providing the infrastructure needed to open new markets in space.
To space and back for that.
And finally, what is thought to be the world's first postage stamp, known as Penny Black, is being offered at auction with a price estimate of up to $8.25 million. Dating from 1840, the item is the earliest securely dated example of the first postage stamp. Featuring a profile of Queen Victoria, it cost a flat rate. Before that, the recipient had to cover the cost of the postage. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. Two-time African champions Anambra will face formidable CAF Confederation Cup playoffs opponent Libya's club side Al Ittihad as they seek to re-emerge as a force in Africa. The pairing is amongst the most intriguing after the draw in Cairo earlier today pitted Confederation Cup last 32 winners against the CAF Champions League last 32 losers. Meanwhile, Arsenal secured a 2-0 win at home over Leeds United in the last 16 of the Carabao Cup played this evening. Second-half goals from Callum Chambers with his first touch 23 seconds after coming on as sub, and Eddie Nketiah gave Arsenal an ultimately comfortable win, taking them into the last 8 of the competition and maintaining their recent good form. It was not an easy ride for Chelsea, who advanced via penalties after a 1-1 draw against Southampton. The Blues won the spot kicks 4-3. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is expected to remain in charge as Manchester United manager despite their heavy defeat at the hands of Liverpool. Despite their poor results and huge external speculation, there is no suggestion from inside the club that Solskjaer's job is under threat at this time. And that will be all on Sports News.
Thank you, Kayode. And the main news again. The Plateau State governor today took a swipe at politicians, blaming them for rising insecurity in the country. Governor Lalong said this at the second day of the 25th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Bunyato. Do have a good night.